This podcast is a product of the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals. Nothing in this podcast should be considered legal advice. To find a collaborative professional near you, visit www.collaborativepracticeflorida.com. I'm Catherine Eaton, a member of the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals. And on today's podcast is Christi Gray. Christi graduated and got her undergrad degree from the University of Colorado at Boulder. And she got her law degree from Florida State University College of Law, and she graduated with honors. She is licensed to practice both in Florida and Colorado. She has had her own law firm since 2013. She's a member of the Capital Collaborative Group. She's also a member of the William H. Stafford American Inns of Court, the Florida Association of Women Lawyers, and the Thunderdome Mentor for Family Law. She does a lot of community service, and she currently is a Ronald McDonald House Charities of Tallahassee board member, a Holy Comforter Episcopal School Alumni Family Committee member, a guardian ad litem, and a Jeffrey Allen Gabor Jr. interview series volunteer. So she does a lot of things. She's received a lot of awards, but today we're here to talk about collaborative law and the process. So Christi, tell us how you got involved and started with practicing collaborative.
Well, thank you for having me here today. I'm a big fan of collaborative divorce, so I'm more than happy to share my knowledge and, get it to expand. I started getting involved in pre-pandemic because I remember I had to fly to Miami to be trained. I'm in Tallahassee and there was no training here, so I had to actually go out of town to be trained. But there were basically two attorneys in town who were talking about it and who were trained and were hyping it up. And I always like to improve my skill set. That's why I'm, trained as a guardian ad litem, a parenting coordinator, a certified family mediator. And I thought, well, this might be another skill set to have. Whether you use it or not, it's still helpful in practicing family law. So I went down to Miami and became trained, and the collaborative practice in Tallahassee has just grown each year, and a lot of us do it. And I think that's what makes it work in Tallahassee compared to a lot of places is we just have pushed for a lot of our local family law attorneys to be trained in it. And once you start it, you love it.
So let's just circle back a little bit. So how did you even know that about collaborative, learn about that, and then seek out a training in Miami? Do you remember?
Yeah, so there was a local attorney here who was a big fan of it. She kept mentioning it to me, and I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and do it. So I just kind of looked where the trainings were in Florida, and one was Miami. So I just signed up for it and I went down there for the training.
Yeah, it's a 2-day training. So that's a commitment to fly down there and then spend 2 days, which is very intensive to soak it all in and get the lay of the land and understand then the difference of if you're doing a collaborative case versus a more traditional case that people know of when they're, watching a movie, TV, or they hear about. I have not seen a movie or TV show with collaborative yet, but hopefully that will come.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's still pretty new, but like I said, in Tallahassee, I feel like talking to my colleagues around the state, we are doing a pretty good job here of promoting it. And that's what it's about. It's giving people options.
it is. So will you talk a little bit about that in Tallahassee? If a new client comes in, how do you educate them and explain to them the options of collaborative versus other styles of resolving their issues?
Yeah, I usually walk them through the different options. There's normally three options. The third option I always bring is collaborative. I do have a handout sheet I give them. Some people are better at learning, from reading versus, listening. But I always tell them that's my favorite. I give a discount actually on my hourly rate.
Oh,
That's also to offset, because you have professional fees too, right? We have a financial neutral and a mental health facilitator. So I do give a discount as encouragement to offset it. And I just tell them it's less stressful. It's less expensive than a trial. And, I have a little spiel I give them about privacy, being transparent. I personally have never had one that has failed. I always knock on wood because I know eventually there'll be that time. And I also tell them, it's good for modifications. I've had several cases that, life happens, people get unemployed, things happen with children, people move. And so I've had several come back that we divorce collaboratively and we do the modification in the collaborative setting too.
so you talked a little bit about the cost of it. So can you explain why litigation is so costly versus the collaborative process?
Yes, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we charge hourly. And the more time you put in the case, the more it's going to cost you. And also, that goes, prepping for hearings and trials are very expensive. I tell all my clients for me to walk into the courthouse, it's $3,000 minimum just for me to walk in there, right? Because I got to prep and do all this stuff ahead of time. Um, and also when you deal with litigation, it tends to drag on for many reasons. No one's fault sometimes it is. And so the longer a case goes on, then the more time I'm putting into it, and therefore it's going to cost more. And the collaborative cases tend to be a lot shorter. It does depend. We've had some cases that we've had to put on hold for health reasons or business reasons, but when you're on hold, you're not really billing either. So in the long run, I think it's cheaper, but at the end of the day, with collaborative divorce, it also depends on the clients, right? They kind of have control of the time, which therefore they have control over the fees.
That's true. I think that people don't understand when you litigate how much behind the scenes time it takes for an attorney to walk into the courthouse. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it's not like you walk into a collaborative matter unprepared. So, can you talk a little bit about the difference of preparation for a collaborative meeting, maybe versus preparation to walk into a courthouse? I don't think people understand the behind the scenes and what we're doing. And when they get this bill, they don't really get what we've been doing all that time.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in general, I tell people if it's a 1 day trial or even a 1 day hearing, sometimes hearings are harder than trials. Um, I count on a minimum 2 days prep. So if it's a 1 day trial, then there's going to be 2 days of prep. That's what, 16 hours times my billable rate. Then the 1 day of trial plus post trial. There's always a lot of work people don't realize. Like some proposed orders we draft after a trial or a hearing can take hours and hours and hours. Um, so if it's a 1 day trial, you're looking at like 4 days of a billable
Wow.
day, right?
I never counted
For
it up before, but so
I mean, that's ballpark. Obviously, some is less, some is more. But in my mind, that's what I plan on doing. Obviously, each case is different. Some are more complicated. Some have more unique areas of law. Some, we could do in our sleep. It just depends on the case. But for a collaborative meeting, I look at it as a little bit of a mini mediation. So I do have to prep. I always meet with my client ahead of time. I don't want them to be blindsided or shocked about things. I go into every, we call them team meetings. I go to every team meeting like we are ready to resolve every issue if we can get through it. And for me, a prep work on a team meeting is if it's a 2 hour meeting, sometimes it only takes me an hour to do the prep work. The big difference really is I don't have to organize exhibits. I don't have to gather as much discovery. I don't have to prep witnesses or get witnesses lined up. So a lot of that we don't deal with in team meetings. Now we do have obviously documents, quote unquote, evidence, but that's one thing that's nice about the financial expert is they're the ones who organize it. I mean, I still review it all beforehand, so I know what I'm doing when I get there, but they're the ones who are doing the legwork.
And they know what they're doing. I think that people think just because we're attorneys, we that we can do the whole thing. We can, but there's people who do certain parts of it better. So will you talk a little bit? The financial organizes it, but what else do they do to facilitate and make it easier actually for the parties, not just the lawyers?
Yeah. So like certain cases we need a business valuation. I can't do that, but a lot of financial experts can. You know, present value, pensions is something they can do easily. They just know it, and the people I use can explain it really well too. They always love their Excel sheets, which you know I love too. It's easy to walk through it, and they can hand it out afterwards too. And they charge half the amount that I charge. So let them do the legwork on that at half the cost. And like I said, they can do things that I cannot do. And we do rely on financial experts on certain trials and hearings.
That's true. So then will you talk a little bit about the facilitator and why attorneys in collaborative use a facilitator? I mean, what's the point of them? Why do you need one?
Well, that's a good point. We've had a lot of discussions in our group here. We try to meet like once a month about needing like a mental health facilitator when there are no kids, when there's no substance abuse. And we've all kind of come to the conclusion that they're needed, even though because they're not doing a lot of work, so they don't cost a lot, but they kind of keep everyone in their lane. They organize meetings, they send out agendas. You know, even the most amicable divorce has stressors. You know, it's a psychological process. I've been through one myself, so I understand it. And just having someone there who understands that and knows how to handle that is always helpful. And I tell people, even though we don't need them to help with a parenting plan, say, it's just nice to have them keep it organized and keep it going.
Yeah, that's true. And what do you think, and this is just a side thing, now that there's a presumption of 50-50 time sharing, so what has been your experience in collaborative cases? Are people sticking to that? Is that an important thing, or are people really looking at their families and figuring out what works for the kids?
I, at least in my area, the Second Circuit where I am, they've been doing 50-50 for a long time. So,
Oh, okay.
so the
It's new
50-50,
for some people. I guess it's trickled down from the capital. It's trickled down.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to say it was always to me in my mind a starting point. I just had to go through the 22 factors and show the judge why it shouldn't be 50-50. So I feel like it being in a statute now hasn't really changed how I handle it, I guess you would say. And, you know, I have tried some since the new statute came down, and I've had judges rule against 50-50, just like they did before. And so you know, that's part of having litigation experience is also important for collaborative because you talk about what a judge will do or a particular judge will do. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a starting point, but for me, it's been a starting point for a long time. And it's nice. That's where the mental health facilitator comes in, is like, okay, look, I have a case right now. We have a very autistic 11-year-old. Well, 50
Mm,
50 is not always the best for an autistic 11-year-old who is not good with transitions.
yeah, needs more continuity. So when practicing collaborative, what do you, what's your favorite part? I know that's a general because we started, how did you get involved? But what is your favorite part about and why you tell your clients, this is my favorite way to do it? What's the magic of it?
Well, I mean, I think there's less stress, less emotion. I think it's great for everybody. You know, the team consists of 6 people. You have 4 professionals. And when you have 4 professionals telling you, yes, this is a good idea, or this is what we think is okay, it really reassures the clients. Like they are hearing it from four professionals who are experienced in, divorces, that yes, it gives them extra reassurance that this is the right thing to do. Um, and I also tell them, no, wouldn't you rather have a financial expert help calculate these numbers than a judge who's not necessarily great with math? Wouldn't you rather have a mental health facilitator who understands child development and substance abuse, or mental health issues, rather than a judge who's clueless about child development? When I say clueless, not professionally trained.
Right, right. They hear from professionals and they go to continuing education, but that's not the same thing as really being educated on that subject.
Correct. So I just say I would rather have someone who's an expert in the field help make the decision and give direction than a judge who has not much experience in the field. And like even business valuations can be overwhelming for some judges too. And wouldn't you rather have someone who knows what they're doing rather than a judge? Because we all know you go to court 20% of the time, you walk out of there like, what just happened?
So, talk a little bit about some of the issues that you can address and really hash out in collaborative, but that a judge um, just really doesn't consider, but is important to the parties.
Yeah, I mean, thanks as we all become more experienced in collaboratives, our ideas change. Like we used to always think, oh, it's just two reasonable people without, significant issues. But I feel like sometimes the people with substance abuse issues and the people with mental health issues benefit also from collaborative too. And so, you can be more creative than a judge. A judge is very limited on what he or she can or cannot do. And in collaborative, we can think outside of the box, and we can also like when you go to court, they have to kind of have a final on everything, where we can keep certain things flexible and open going down the road to some extent. Like it's pretty standard for us to put in our parenting plans that if any parenting issues arise, that they meet with the mental health facilitator first to kind of work through the issues before running to court. And I think that's very beneficial.
Yeah, that is. The judge isn't going to meet with you. You just go
No.
straight, you just go straight to court.
Right.
So I know in Tallahassee, in your practice group, that collaborative has really grown and it's really strong there. What do you think is the factors between, because you've just spoke about some experiences in court, recent experiences in court. So not everyone coming into your office is saying, okay, Christi, let's do collaborative. What do you think is the difference? Why are some people choosing collaborative and some people not?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of my litigation cases are what I call post-judgment, they're enforcements and modifications. And those aren't really, I have not had an opportunity to change those into a collaborative setting. By the time you come back to me post-judgment, we've already kind of tried and we need some resolution. But I'm open for trying those. But I think um, when they come to me, I've even had people, like I had a case yesterday where they filed a petition for dissolution of marriage. I saw who was the opposing attorney and I reached out to her and I said, hey, do you want to transition this to a collaborative case? Because I had already talked to my client about collaborative. And she was like, yes. So we do that a lot here. Once a petition's filed and I see who's on the other side, and if I know they're very pro collaborative, and we probably have 30 family law attorneys in Tallahassee, I would say, who do it on a full-time basis. 15 of us are very pro-collaborative. So if I see that name on the other side, I just say, hey, you want to switch it to a collaborative transition case? And they will say yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Mhm.
And I think that that's um, different in some of the bigger cities where you have a larger population, and instead of having 30 attorneys that just do family, I mean, you can have 100 plus attorneys that
Right.
do family. So it's, but to have a community that knows each other and to be able to have that option, I think that says a lot. And I'm hoping that by doing these podcasts, that people will learn about collaborative and it will spread to other areas. Because I think people, when they get the divorce process, they don't even hear about, you said you talk to them about 3 different processes, but they don't even hear about collaborative. So I think
Yeah.
that that's important. It's wonderful that Tallahassee is so entrenched and has has had a success rate with collaborative cases. So now I know you're in Tallahassee, but if somebody wants to find you and talk to you about collaborative, whether in Tallahassee or someplace else, how do they find you?
So I have a website, it's graylawfl.com, but we also have a local collaborative website. It's capitalcollaborativegroup.com. So when I meet with clients and I talk about the collaborative process, I have a sheet I give them that kind of summarizes it. And I have that website on there and it will say, have your spouse look at this website, and it has all the locally trained collaborative attorneys, but we also list our other professionals on there too. And that kind of helps them talk to their spouse, like, hey, go look at this website and, maybe meet with one of these attorneys rather than attorneys that aren't on the list in case you want to do collaborative. Um, you have that option.
Oh, that's nice. That's a good idea. That's so thank you for being with us today on the podcast. And thank you for sharing your views and information about collaborative.
Well, thank you for having me, Catherine. I appreciate it.